of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Keith, would you take roll, please?
I sure can. Mr. Fox?
Here.
Jeff Newsom? Joe Kalani?
Here.
Sue Grissom?
Here.
Mike Mitchell?
Here.
And Tom Murphy?
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
All righty, thank you very much. Next up, item 4, approval of our meeting agenda.
So moved. Support.
We have a motion from Commissioner Kalani, second from Commissioner Mitchell. Are there any changes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, approval of our August 27, 2018 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Support.
Motion from Commissioner Grissom, second from Commissioner Voigt. Any changes?
I didn't see it.
All righty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, item 6. This is call to the public. Anyone like to step forward this evening? No. Okay. We are on to item 7 already. 7A is a use determination for the Kubota Bobcat dealership. I think maybe what we'll do, is there anybody here representing them that wants to come forward? If you'd like to come up and have a seat. What we'll do is we'll turn the floor over to our planning director who can introduce the project.
No problem.
Allow you to answer or add anything you'd like, and then we'll take a look at a review letter we have and we can converse back and forth. So, yep, we'll turn it over to Troy Langer.
Okay. So in this particular case, really the applicant is more or less staff. The person that's here representing the business has come to the township, said they'd like to do a Kubota Bobcat dealership where the LaFontaine auto dealership is. The first thing that we have to do is determine what is that activity? What is the Kubota Bobcat dealership? Is that permitted in the district? Or is it permitted in a different district? If it's permitted in the district, is it a use by right, a permitted use, or is it a use that's only permitted by special use permit? And if they're not specifically listed, then the next item that really is the Planning Commission's jurisdiction is to determine, well, which use is the most closely related? And that's ultimately the question that we're being asked, but let me just try to give you a little background information. This is an aerial view of the LaFontaine dealership. So M59 would go through the center of this. 23 would be over in this area, and then Old 23. And then this is the property that's in question. Keep in mind, when we're talking about classification of a use, we're not really talking about site-specific issues. We're looking at this use could be in any zoning district that you allow it in. So, but just so you know, the property they're looking at, it's largely a used car dealership. They have had cars out on the site and throughout the location. This is the building. They do have a back area. My understanding that this area they use for detailing or prepping cars for being displayed or sold here on the property. And the property is a little larger than what it might appear. This land coming all the way over, right about over here is the property line. So it encompasses the trees and a fairly large lawn area as well to the west. So that's the property that they're looking at, operating their Kubota Bobcat dealership. Let me then go to the zoning ordinance. So one of the first things you do, this is a copy of the GC General Commercial, which that property is zoned. And in the first column, the principal permitted uses, these are the uses that are permitted effectively by right or by site plan approval. And then the second column are special land uses where there's a public hearing involved. We do notice to surrounding property owners. We do notice in the newspaper. And this doesn't mean they're permitted everywhere. In certain instances, the Planning Commission and the board may find particular pieces of land aren't suitable for these type of uses, or special conditions may be deemed necessary in order to accommodate them. What staff has done is gotten some information from the applicant to describe what they do there. Since the staff memorandum came out, they provided another email, and that's been sent to you separately. What staff essentially did, based on what we had at that time, is examined a couple of these uses. I'll try to zoom in. One of the options you have is to declare what they do is sell equipment. That's essentially retail sales. One of the options you have is to classify them as a retail sales operation that falls in the principal permitted use. However, what this means is everything must be inside. No equipment, no items can be displayed outdoors at all. So that's one caveat. If you decided to classify them as just retail sales, they could buy the building, they could operate as a Kubota Bobcat dealer, but no equipment, none of the tractors or equipment could be sitting outside at any time. So that's one option that was outlined in the staff report. Another option that was outlined over here in the special land use is the automotive sales. Currently it is automotive sales. For whatever reason, the existing LaFontaine never did receive a special use permit. It probably predated the requirement for a special use permit. One of the things the Planning Commission could do is determine that what they are proposing is similar to automotive sales and therefore can be treated similar and would require a special land use permit as shown here. And this particular category references very specific conditions that are part of it in section 4.15 of the ordinance. Another option that you had is under a special use permit was this leasing of recreational, landscaping, or moving equipment category. Again, by special use permit, no particular unusual or different conditions for that category. Another option you have is down here, uses of the same nature or class as listed in this district, either permitted principal use or special use, but not listed elsewhere in the zoning ordinance. This is a special use permit for that. It's kind of a catch-all, essentially saying that if a use is not specifically listed, but you feel it's similar to uses here, you could say it's permitted as by special use permit, and that would go through that process. Another option you have is to, in the some of the other districts, such as light industrial or industrial, if you felt there was something there that was more appropriate, you could classify it to be similar to that. What staff did is looked at the automobile sales, examined what they are as a construction / landscape type vehicles, and felt that there's conditions that were associated with the service and the sales of that pertain to how things can be stored outside, and any noise, and if they're going to do service, certain conditions that must be met with that. Thought that might be the safest approach. There's specific conditions that might relate and could be applicable. And so what staff has done is outlined a recommendation to treat it similar to automobile sales and or repair, which would require a special use permit. But the ultimate decision is up to the Planning Commission. and I guess I'll leave it open for any questions or comments that you might have.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add? And maybe introduce yourself. Let us know who you are.
Yeah, my name is Ryan Wurtzel. That's W-U-R-T-Z-E-L, with Carlton Equipment Company, family business. My father owned the company for just over 40 years, and now my brother and I and our partner's son are involved in it. So we've got 5 locations in the state. Actually have an offshoot 2-location operation that's only Kubota. So this is kind of going to be a mix, we hope, for the local area here. But yeah, the recommendation, I think, as far as automobile sales, I would align it with that. We're a little bit of a unique business in that we go and search people out, other contractors, handymen, farms, things like that. So our traffic is never really that intense. So I think that's a good thing, but we also use these outfits as kind of a billboard. So we would display our new equipment outside so we can kind of get the word of mouth out by passersby and things like that. So I feel that that recommendation is adequate for us. But other than that, I mean, every community that we're in, we're there, we're stable, we own our businesses, and we're there for the long haul. We're not a company that's ever moved around. We like stability with our locations. Like to be in good communities and be good neighbors. So that's pretty much it.
Okay. All right, planning commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Well, you said you had 5 locations.
Yeah.
They all pretty much operate the same way?
Yeah, I would say that 2 of them probably are a little bit, we have some larger equipment there, which you have to have larger land. So we've got in Kalamazoo, which is where we started back in 1938, we've got 14 acres and we're out in kind of the middle of nowhere. So we've got some bigger machinery, but what we found is our sweet spot for, especially the Metro Detroit area, this would somewhat be a satellite for us because we've got a place in Livonia that's on about 1.5 acres, and we've got one in Chesterfield, which houses some bigger equipment. We've got 6 acres there. But yeah, 5 locations, and this one would be, like I said, satellite-ish, so more display. Then we have our salesmen who go out and do the outreach.
Don't want to get into too much of the site plan stuff, but do want to, the reason I wanted to ask that question is I'm familiar with your Saginaw facility.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we at least cover this, because to me this is very important to what the use is and where this goes. And the component of the outdoor products on display and those types of things is that's something you need to be very conscientious around here. Troy, I've got a couple pictures so that the Planning Commission can understand what we're talking about. I don't want to get off the topic because this is a determination but on the use, not a site plan, but to help determine the use, I think that we should see what a facility looks like, because I think that given the general commercial area of M59 across from Target, can you flip through a couple of these?
Yeah.
These were taken today, just happened to be by your store actually, and I knew it was on the agenda, so I stopped and took some pictures.
So this is, I'm guessing, the Saginaw store. I'm not sure why I can't flip through these, though.
You gotta go down.
Well, they were per...
Oh, I gotta go down. Okay, so this is, and you can see, one of the concerns that the township staff has, if it's deemed automobile sales, certainly the vehicles, if you can, would be permitted outdoors, but they have to be on the paved areas. We don't allow gravel. You can't park these on the lawn. And any of this other ancillary equipment would not be permitted to be displayed outside. So, and then items like this cause concern, seeing tires and equipment and maintenance of things and pallets outside would not be permitted in the GC district at all. And again, the gravel and these type of piece augers and attachment accessories. would not be permitted outdoors. This all would have to be inside an enclosed building. And again, here's some more of that type of equipment. And then trucks and bulldozers like this, if that's not something that's part of the sales. So this is a gray area because it's not easy to pinpoint down. You know, when I say the word Kubota, most people know what that is. It's a utility tractor, but what does that classify as? Is it truly a motor vehicle that's licensed to drive on the road? Is it, or is it a lawn tractor? So these type of items that you're seeing here, displayed outdoors, would be not permitted. These are more or less the Bobcat units, which have, if those are the motor vehicles, automobiles, could be outside, but again, only on paved areas. And
Is this a rental store? No.
No, we have a component that's rental, but it's such a small percentage. So basically, if
So these are strictly sales? People
correct,
buy.
sales
Okay.
and lease. And I would say that out of that location, so we have an account with Consumers Energy, which that's more of an aggressive application for us, that store. I would probably refer you to, the vision for this store is our Jackson location, Kubota. You know, you could bring that up on Street View, and it presents more with what we're looking for here.
Well, I think that's part of determining the use. That's why I wanted to show, because when I read the email, I thought, and then it had the Carlton. Of course, I knew who you were, and
Yeah.
I've driven up north a million times and driven by the place, and today I was by it. So I said, you know, I'm going to snap a couple pictures, because I don't get the vision of what it is off of what we have for documentation. And determining the use is very important when it's not defined in the ordinance to this. This is not automobile or commercial to me. Automobile dealers, while they do put vehicles out, and as Troy said, could be in the parking lot, they don't display the tires and the bed liners and all of those things in their parking lot. There's a lot of that, a lot.
Yeah.
And that building is so small. And so that stuff can't be there.
Yeah.
I think what Larry's, if you look at our commercial district, we don't allow, except for special use for certain things like a holiday, you know, like Kroger might have pumpkins out or something.
Yep.
Yeah, or even Rural King, I think had a, if you see what we have over at Rural King.
Yep.
We don't allow a lot of any outside storage of anything. So.
Well, and when Rural King came, they are used to having all that material out in their parking lots. If you go look at the facility during the day, you couldn't see it tonight. They built that huge garden center.
Yeah.
That was to put all that in. And trying to figure the use, I don't know how this fits in the commercial district for me, because most everything has to be outside, and most of it's accessory to the actual machine itself.
Yeah.
So those are just some things that I think about. Some of the equipment's fairly large. That orange, whatever that is, excavator is fairly big.
Are you going to have those type of excavators, or is it more the kind of compact kind of stuff?
Yep. It would be nothing bigger than a skid steer on wheels. And then we would have utility vehicles and then lawnmower type, you know, from the Kubota line. So.
Yeah, you drew me up into a different perspective. Reading the letter, I got the impression we were talking small
there's not a lot of room
tractors and lawnmowers and that type of thing. And I do recognize a Bobcat, you know, skid steer, but I'm not envisioning any excavators or
Yeah.
bulldozers or that type of
No,
equipment.
and yeah, the the bulldozers and excavators, anything, literally nothing above, so our skid steers wheel machine will be 6,500 pounds, if that means anything, probably at this table-ish area with the bucket out front, so nothing. I mean, we know that facility could never house that, and it would have, because of the traffic flow, like I said earlier, this to us would be a lot like a billboard, so you'd want the display to be just dialed right in.
Well, that's along I-75, so that's quite a billboard.
Yeah, it is quite a billboard, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it's there. I'm just trying to figure the use out.
Yep.
I'm trying
No,
to
that's-
figure out the use. I see a lot of industrial look when I see it. I don't see GC. That's where I'm having the conflict. This in an industrial zoning would be far more fitting in my mind than a GC district.
Would it be helpful if I submitted pictures, like I said, of that Jackson store, to just give you a feel for that, and then we can kind of determine, because that's the guideline that I was using for this location, that it would mirror my operation down there.
Well, anything you can do to help tell us what your business is
Yeah.
going to be used to help make the determination,
I think that's helpful.
I don't have a problem with you being in town. I'm still just questioning the GC. I just can't picture that sitting there like that and in front of Target and Kroger, which is where this is all located. I just think we have other areas that are more fitting to that are just around the corner. And then when I looked, I did take your other sites and look on the Google Maps and come down on the satellite. Most of your facilities, as a matter of fact, all of them, but the Clinton Township one maybe, are very industrial and rural areas. They're not in commercial districts. They're pretty out there in terms of space around them, or they're in a flat-out commercial park, an industrial park, not a GC center like this is.
Yeah, and I think that our thought was, because the Kubota addition for us has been more recent, the Bobcat was always our bread and butter. With the Kubota product, it is more residential in nature. We've got a lineup that's pretty broad, so when you're talking about somebody who's got 2 acres and needs to mow, we can do that now. So since 15, when we started in Jackson, that was originally a Carlton Equipment location. The addition of that line kind of, it is different, and I want to be in the right spot too, but that Kubota line really it gives us a need for a more residential, customer access. So the display has been big for us in Jackson. That's, the presentation there is everything for us. It's what sells a customer who is literally just trying to maintain their property, or they want to buy a skid steer. You've got that type of mix. So.
Ryan, it sounds like the maximum size of the vehicle is kind of automotive size. If it's a
I would
skid
say
steer,
absolutely.
if it's a small gentleman's tractor, for doing the smaller lots.
Yep.
Again, no excavators, no power lifts, no height like that.
No, it's literally the skid steer, small, the mini utility vehicles, RTVs we call them, and then lawnmowers of a wide array. The implements, the attachments that go, on the skid steers, that's what's the bread and butter of a skid steer. So, on display, what we've done in Jackson is everything is attached. So, you've got showcase items where it is a skid steer with an auger drive attached to it, sitting there, or a mixer or something like that. So a tractor would have an implement behind it, like a York rake.
Where would you store the inventory? So if somebody bought that auger, you're not going to give them the one off the display, so where are those?
So those would have to be stored inside. We don't get too deep on those things. Right now we know our product mixes and our turns. So, we know with smaller locations like this, you can't just have everything you need, and that's why it's nice to have two bigger locations in the metro area, because you can bring things in. So, if you're going to get a 12-inch auger drive with your skid steer purchase, for instance, those, we would have probably 2 to 3 of them on site. You just couldn't physically house it. So that would be the reality of it.
And then I guess the other component would just be how much service work is going to be done. You talk, LaFontaine pretty much did detailing of cars there.
Yeah.
They didn't do oil changes and tires and have that stuff laying on the side of the building. How are we going to deal with that?
So we wouldn't do tires at this location. That would be nothing we would do, but we would have to do an oil change, lubricant change, things like that. A lot of the stuff in Bobcat land comes roll off, so we literally drive them off the truck. They're ready to go, short of being double checked for, imperfections from the factory. The Kubota stuff typically comes in a crate. You pull it out of the crate and you put the wheels on it. So you don't need gigantic service areas for those types of applications. Our other locations would have to pick up the slack there. If you do anything, a lot of our Bobcat customers are in the field now. They want us to send our trucks out, and we've got those satellite guys in the area that go out and literally do that in the field, either on a job site or at a guy's, operation.
Troy, can you pull a Jackson site up on Google Maps?
While he's pulling that up, is the top coat to this parking lot asphalt?
It is.
At LaFontaine? Is that sufficient for you in moving your heavy equipment around?
Everything at this location, because we'd be under 10,000 pounds, everything is on rubber, so it's either rubber tires or it's on rubber tracks. So it would be sufficient. Nothing would have steel grousers on it.
So this is the Google Maps. This is Red Arrow Highway. I'm not sure if this is your store or this is...
Nope. Give me the address.
Sure.
It's 2524
Competitors.
Lansing Avenue.
2524 Lansing Avenue.
Yep.
Jackson?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I think I was at a Kalamazoo store there. Okay. So
And
this
it should have a pretty decent street view of since we've been there.
So this is what that looks like in Jackson.
Yes.
So that you can get maybe a visual of what the units look like.
So that's our forward display. Then we have an interior showroom right there that houses, new mowers and such. Then if you slide to the left,
That's what I envisioned.
kind of more of the same there in the pen.
So this is almost looks like a Bobcat, except it's Kubota.
Well, that's the Kubota version.
Different paint.
So
Orange instead, right?
No,
So-
you have to be on pavement. You are going to your display areas are limited to the pavement.
Yep.
Not all over the lawn, and
Yep.
you can't, go back, if you go to the satellite view, you can see how they've pushed out into the lawn and just keep growing.
Yep. Yep.
and so we don't allow this type of fencing. Is that something you? Okay.
Can you go to the satellite view in
Yeah.
the backyard? Because that'll be the other thing that's,
So we have a rental division at this location. So in the back there, you will have trailers and things like that if somebody needed to rent one, again, a little bit larger operation as far as rental there because there's no rental stores in town. And then we have the warehousing in the back. So that's where we're lucky enough there to have a bigger facility where we can store a lot of things inside. And we do have the Quonset hut.
I also want you to be aware of the part of the ordinance under automobile sales for the repair shop, the service area. You can't keep anything outside overnight. So if you have a machine that's half tore apart and you need the space inside, you can't just roll it out for the night.
Got to be in.
Yeah.
Brian, is there a maximum horsepower of these tractors, just so we can get an idea?
It'll be, our lineup has tractors that are upwards of 70 horse. So physically in size, they'll be a little taller than a Bobcat, but that's where your main difference is going to be. As far as length from front to rear, they roughly are about the same with a loader on them. But height is where you're going to, a tractor's more perched.
And the rear wheels are not tandem wheels, they're just single?
Yeah, nothing big ag. I mean, Kubota's just getting into larger 170 horsepower tractor size, but I have a cold water location that's more ag. We do have those down there, but there'd be no market for that here and no space. I mean, we'd have to have a completely different operation, so.
Troy, can you take that view and turn it around so we're looking at the front of the,
Street view again?
yeah, street view again, kind of. There we go. So, in my opinion, for this GC zone area, if I saw this dealership with tractors of this nature, some being, you know, skid steers, Bobcat type, parked in front of the building in order, like you would typically see a used car dealership, that would not bother me at all.
I agree. That's not what Saginaw looks like at all.
Well, absolutely, that's, we're looking at something different, but as I say, that would not be detrimental, in my opinion, in that location that we're talking about. My concern would be, how might you word the approval so you could ensure we didn't end up with a bulldozer at some point?
Well, just know that what we're doing is a determination. So if you determine that this type of equipment is permitted in GC, Saginaw is permitted. Now, we'll have special use as an option to us to try and keep it under control. But
Yeah.
you're not approving that.
I recognize
You're
that.
saying it's okay to sell this kind of equipment in GC. Then you have to decide if there will be any special use attached to it or not.
Right.
This is a pretty picture, and I would agree with you totally. If it looked like that, and you could guarantee that, that's one thing.
Yeah, that'd be my point.
Well, it's kind of,
And if they leave, and John Deere comes in and doesn't want it to look like that, what controls are in place to make it look that way? The other stuff that goes beyond the nice display of lining the tractors, I don't have a problem with that right there. It's all the other stuff that seems to be very industrial to me. And I just can't imagine that parked next to the Imagine Theater. Because that's about what you're going to allow when you put this in a GC. And again, this part's fine. It's all the oil change, it's the creep outside of the pavement, it's keeping it in control, not having tires. Those are more industrial things. That stuff out in the parking lot is just what you would expect in an industrial site. So I haven't made my final decision. I needed to hear what he had to say. But when I see that site, the things that happen there can be of a concern. And that's how you dealt with it at Rural King. You said, well, no, we're not going to do it, and you're going to just put it in the cage. Now enforcement's easy. But that's not bad looking.
No?
I agree.
I have absolutely no problem with
Me
that.
neither, with that.
The sale and the way it's set up.
Yep.
I do worry about the creep that you talked about, you know, where things go where they're not supposed to go and items are left out. And I think that, I think we should consider this for GC, but as a special use.
well, I think it has to be special use according to the ordinance anyways.
Well, we can say it's not if we choose to put it in a permitted special use.
Right.
And then, you know, I hope your business plan can live with the requirements of a special use before you buy that building, if that's the way this goes, because it won't be like you're used to operating in GC. I mean, you have to understand, your business plan and our ordinance have to work together, or there's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I agree.
And we don't need enforcement over there every 3 days.
Oh, yeah, and that's, you know,
No, and we don't want to do that. I agree.
Those are my concerns. My concerns
So
are
what's
keeping
our-
it confined.
What's our choices?
So I in the staff report, I outlined a couple of options. Unfortunately, we're not drafting an ordinance, So all we get to do is point to a provision in the ordinance and say, you are this. And then you're subject to whatever that's subject to. You can't, we don't have the ability to add language or modify when we're at this stage. We're just determining that you are retail sales, and then he's subject to whatever those standards are. I recommended the automobile sales because there are specific standards, and I'm going to click to that, that talks about, this is automobile, vehicle sales. Basically, all of the outdoor sales has to be on paved parking area. The parking lot has to be built in accordance to the engineer. There's a standard for the driveway. Some of this is already existing, so it's not as much of a concern, but vehicle service would have to occur inside a completely enclosed building, so there's provision there. And down here, there's no external evidence of service of dust and noise outside of the service building. Broadcasting devices, there's a regulation there. There's a regulation on the sales lot parking. So there's specific standards here that I felt would be important to have made part of that. However, it very well could be, if you look at the zoning ordinance, if you decide this isn't commercial because of the other potential issues, you could decide maybe in the industrial district. I didn't outline that, but that's not beyond your scope of authority. The industrial district, I can zoom to that quick. The industrial zoning district has a provision here, recreational vehicle sales and service permitted by special use permit, and it references the same exact section I was just on. So if you felt that maybe commercial was not appropriate and industrial were, that's still within your jurisdiction. So ultimately what you have to decide is which one of these do you think is most similar to what they are as a use.
The other thing, you have no backyard on that lot, so the way you use your backyard, like in Jackson, probably can't happen there. I'm just gravely concerned for your business plan lining with our ordinance and your understanding what you're doing. Lining up tractors in the parking lot on display is nice in GC. That works.
Yeah.
All this other stuff could potentially be the biggest pain in your side. And I want you to come.
No,
I just want you to be in the right place.
Yeah.
That's it. That's really what this boils down to.
I appreciate that.
It is not so you don't come. So, whatever you would like. Now, are you going to look for a motion on this, or
I am.
nod
I'm going
of
to
the
need you
head, or
I did have a draft motion to just, what did I say, move to,
mine didn't have it when I printed it out. We don't have it.
well, I was recommending that it be determined similar to automobile sales. So some sort of motion that would say, Planning Commission finds the proposed use to be similar to automobile sales and subject to the same standard, or whatever you may find. And I don't know if that helps. Or if you find it's permitted only in the industrial district as recreational vehicle sales.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking that if we use the special use and declare it as automotive sales, similar to automotive sales, we pretty much restrict what he can do there. And it sounds like most of us are comfortable with the display of the vehicles only, which if he met the requirements under the automobile sales part of the ordinance, that's all we would see. So that's kind of the direction I'm leaning personally. But it would have to be a special use.
I would agree with that. Otherwise, it should be in the industrial area because of the type of vehicles.
Well, before you rule on this GC and putting this in here, maybe you do or don't want us to do this. Maybe you need to think about what we've talked about, or you're comfortable living in a,
I'm pretty
you're
comfortable.
on a piece of property and you're going to
Yep.
live within the rules of GC.
We'll play ball.
These meetings are recorded.
Yep.
Okay.
That's no problem. I'll say it again.
So is
No,
it,
we're good. And I don't want to, the last thing I wanted to do was, was make anybody apprehensive about us. I do understand the standard. I mean, like I said, we are, this dealership, obviously, we want to look different, and it will have to look different because of where we're going. So, and we will uphold a high standard there. So it will be a good thing, I think, so.
We'd like that. We just want to make sure you understand.
Bar's high, I get it.
All righty? Yeah, and what you can do out in the open in that, because of the district you're in. If you're in a different district, there are different standards, but you're choosing to be here. Okay,
Signing up for it.
all right.
and one thing I'd like to say, and it is different for us, as you can tell, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're
yeah.
unique, and I get that.
Yeah. So like, but in an automotive sales, the biggest vehicle you're going to get is a Suburban
Yeah.
or a crew cab pickup truck. Knowing that with these tractors, they can go, if we just chatted about 70 horsepower and, nothing tandem, even though we know tractors come much larger than that. So that's not language that we need, that it would, stay to a certain size, I guess. I don't know.
When would that come into play?
We're not at a legislative function right here. We can't build into an ordinance language or conditions. That would have to come up at the special use permit if you wanted to limit the size of it at
So
that
what would be
point.
the next process if we were to go that route?
So if we were to go that route, then he would apply for a special use permit as an automobile sales and repair dealership, and it would come here, and as part of that review, he would have to show that he meets the special use permit criteria, which there's general special use permit criteria, then there's special criteria related to the automobile sales and service. He'd have to show that he met both of those, and then as part of your approval, if you wanted to place a condition on the size, that none of the equipment sold shall be larger than whatever that may be, or if the applicant wanted to provide documents that showed what he intends to sell, and you as the planning commission could say, we'll allow those vehicles or smaller to be sold, you could do that.
And I do feel, Ryan, when you say that's what you're going to do, that's what you're going to do. But the point is, what if John Deere buys it or some competitor and it goes into the next level and it's not, the same understanding? So.
Well, the market changes, but the zoning ordinance is there, and we have districts, and we have uses that are permitted in the districts. All we're trying to do is determine where is this business fit.
Yeah.
So this will, wherever we put it, whether it's industrial, whether it be GC, wherever it is that we put it, that is where future businesses of the like will go. So if John Deere wants to move here and they're here, then they will come to GC. Because what you are determining is that this type of business belongs in GC. That's all we're doing.
Well, we're agreeing that it could belong in
No,
GC.
it's going to change we're going to actually,
But you could still be an industrial. I could still have the same sales in industrial.
I see what you're saying, but we don't have a specific use for this type.
but we will, because we're going to determine that it is
Right.
tonight.
Right.
If we do this. So what we're saying is that this type of business now is like automotive sales.
Right.
And when the next one comes to town, they will be in GC. You can't say, no, the next guy, we don't want you there. Now you need to go to LI. That's not the way. We're setting the
No,
words on the page.
But I'm not saying that. I'm
Unless
saying
we
that-
change the ordinance and specify, and then he's grandfathered in.
Yes.
There's another alternative.
The other thing is that, and I'm not a technical person when it comes to these type of tractors, and I don't know how much bigger the John Deere tractors get.
They get big.
Well, I understand they get really big, but I don't know if they have anything that would be a little bit bigger than this that would cause concern that you might have. There's always a possibility that we could say, look, I'm not sure that that's exactly what the Planning Commission decided when they reviewed this request. I don't know that that tractor is similar to these tractors, so there is a possibility that if something else came in and it were larger than what we saw here tonight, I may, as a staff person, say, I think that has to come back to you guys for another round of discussion.
Well, I would think we could even go in and put the limitation on if it's a tractor or construction equipment sale and the motor is of X size or smaller, it is an automotive, it's in this district. Anything larger is an LI.
I agree.
Or an I. I mean, there's ways around it. I'm just trying, we have done like 3 of these since I've been on the Planning Commission all these years. And so most of you have not experienced what we're doing tonight. And what we really did was probably a lot of site plan talking, but it was to help understand what the business was. Because what you're doing is you're saying this type of business in Hartland Township belongs in GC. That's what we're saying. Not that picture and not his business, but this type of business belongs in GC, is what we're saying. Right?
Yeah. It's just
It's
a question
nothing
of what is
personal to
that
him
type.
or anything. He just happened to be the guy that came forward with it.
Yeah.
So usually the ordinance has got it all in, but you're always going to have those few things. This is why we're charged with this task. So, more thoughts, questions?
So if we were to okay this, but with a special use, we can do that tonight, in which case he would have to come back,
Oh, he's coming back because we have, with a special use comes a public hearing.
public hearing.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to do that, so.
And we can set the criteria
And we
or
can
have
set
the
the
discussion
criteria.
of what the criteria are. Like I said, you could put a limit on the size of the equipment that
I
could
think,
be
I
in that
think
type
the
of business.
intent here is, there's not a lot of space there. I mean, I think it's not like the Saginaw one, I would assume. That looked like a pretty big site.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
acreage-wise.
and it even looks smaller than the site that's in.
He has a lot of lawn and open space on this lot right now. If you go back and this,
Oh, in the back, okay.
and between them and Autumn Woods.
I mean, recognizing there's a subdivision right behind there, there's a school right behind there. Of course, there'll be likely commercial to the east. But that's also been the subject of possible mixed use with residential as well. At one point, we didn't go forward, but there's been all kinds of talk, so. And then you got commercial across the street. But you also have right there, is that right across from the tower, water tower?
It's
Which
in
is
that
further
area,
back?
I don't,
I can't remember.
It's not quite
I think it's
Yeah.
more targeted, but maybe not.
Yeah, I think it's more targeted.
I would, that's where I'm leaning. I would rather have it come back as, allow it as a GC, but with a special use. My take on
Okay.
I guess the next question is, what do we classify it as? Compact utility vehicles?
Yeah, do we need to put a designation on what this business is right now, or just this particular application? How are we doing this?
So,
And for the folks who need to understand why we're asking all these questions, because it doesn't appear in our ordinance. Number two, we can't really talk among ourselves outside because of the Open Meetings Act. So there's a lot of these discussions we have, it has to do with the fact that we're restricted by how open meetings are handled, so. that
True.
for the young people.
There you go. You're wondering why these people don't
Yeah, you're
seem to
probably,
know what we're...
why aren't these guys making a decision? So,
Why didn't they come prepared and study? We did. Now we have to
did.
talk about it.
so we could talk, exactly, so we could talk about it.
So Troy, what are we going to do with that?
So you really are looking at determining that it is similar and should be treated as one of these uses here. And subject to those.
You're referring to his business only, the
Yeah.
Bobcat Kubota.
What you were presented here tonight, the facts that you have here tonight, what was discussed at this meeting is similar, as what I'm hearing is you're feeling it, those conditions that were part of the automobile sales and that the vehicle seems similar. So my thoughts are that you would motion to deem that this use that was presented here is similar to automobile sales and repair and should be treated as such, and just leave it at that. And then we can probably look at an ordinance amendment in the future. I am very concerned about any kind of legislative function of inserting a use that's not listed there. There's a specific procedure that you have to have for that. I just think you're better to just state that you are pointing to something in the existing ordinance and saying, we deem what you presented to be similar to that. And once you start getting beyond that, I have concerns as to, are we venturing into legislative functions, which we can do, but that's a different procedure. And we have not done any of that for where we're at right now. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Does somebody want to make that motion, or?
Okay. Determine that the Kubota / Bobcat dealer will be deemed similar to an auto and sales repair service center, and will qualify underneath the automobile sales portion of the special use under the ordinance that is. In the GC district. Did I get it all?
Support.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Voigt, a second from Commissioner Mitchell. Any further discussion, questions?
Lots of questions.
There are lots of questions. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. On to the next step. You can give Troy a call on Monday.
Yeah.
Talk about what has to happen next.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for going and taking those photos and having
Oh,
a discussion.
yeah.
We wouldn't have known to ask.
Right. Next up, agenda item 7B, future land use map amendment, 2015 comprehensive plan, initiate multiple family as listed here. So I think the best thing to do is probably just turn this over to you, Troy, and you
Okay.
can walk us through the discussion.
So just to give a little background history, the Planning Commission and the board have had some joint sessions. Part of that, those sessions have led to discussion on new urbanism and mixed use. And in addition, the Planning Commission as well as the board have reviewed proposals of land that was either completely zoned commercial or as part of a PD, which was essentially commercial, where the applicants have requested to modify that and have apartment units become part of that. In addition, we have another development that is largely a mixed-use project where there could be apartments as part of that. And then also background, the township did a residential market analysis in 2014 where that limited or projected a maximum number of apartment units in the next so many years. Throughout those joint meetings with the board and the Planning Commission, it caused ultimately the Planning Commission to say maybe we have on our future land use map more land designated in a multifamily category than what we really need. With the handful of projects that we've seen, we're going to be over the number of rental units, and that doesn't include all those other areas. So the Planning Commission directed a future land use committee. I don't know that it was given a formal title like that, but that committee ultimately looked at 4 areas that are multifamily on the future land use map. I'll try to pull that up, not that one. So this is a future land use map of Hartland Township, and what we did is broke it out into 4 areas. Area 1 being up off of Clyde Road, Area 2 being somewhat near Dunham and Hartland Road, Area 3 being north of M59, probably near the intersection of where Arena Road is, and then Area 4 out by Pleasant Valley Road. These are the 4 areas that the Land Use Committee what we've done is provided all of the property information for those in your packet. You can go through and look at an individualized aerial map of every single property in each one of these areas, as well as the property card that kind of tells you exactly what's on those areas. And I'll kind of walk through each of these 4 areas and then ultimately kind of tell you what the Future Land Use Committee decided to recommend. I'll start with Area 1, which is up by Clyde Road. Area 1 is largely rural and agricultural in nature. The designation is actually splitting. Some of these parcels are partially in this planned industrial research development category, as well as multifamily. Ultimately, the Land Use Committee looked at this and thought there's no real water or sewer available. We've heard from numerous apartment complex companies that they need both water and sewer. They also like to be near commercial core areas. They felt, the committee felt this was too far removed, and with the lack of utilities was unlikely to be developed in multifamily. The Land Use Committee felt that this probably was intended to be a transitional zone. As you move away from 23, you have light industrial or research and office here, and then the Future Land Use Committee thought this may or may not serve in that capacity. Up here, you don't have that. So ultimately, what they recommended was to change this area to match what you see in residential around it. So that's Area 1. Area 2 is in this area near Dunham and Hartland Road. And there's already existing condominium developments further to the south. So what we're really looking at are just these single-family lots. And most of this is already developed and either has homes on it or is likely to have homes on it now. Given the proximity to the schools to the north, this is park property. It is somewhat close, but the transition of this to multifamily, given that there's already homes there, it would require amassing probably several of those properties. It didn't seem that this was likely to be a target for multifamily. And again, the recommendation was to medium suburban density, which I think matches the single family that's around the park otherwise. And what I've given you, handed out, is this little chart. I think I have a copy of that. Not that. Oh, here it is. This little chart that I did a while ago which identifies the comprehensive plan categories and the zoning categories, and it tells you what the minimum lot size, the maximum lot size. There's a lot of different names and titles, and the future land use designation doesn't always match up with the zoning. I did this to help so I could kind of keep this straight. I think the Planning Commission had requested a copy of it, so this isn't a document I had intended to be provided out to the public, but it certainly can be. So I've handed that out for you tonight. You can look at, so you can compare the different density or size requirements of each of the categories. That's Area 2, which is, again, largely single-family homes, and the committee has recommended it remain probably in a single-family category. Area 3, this area currently has an ice arena on it. There's office up along M59 and Arena Drive. There's 2 lots on either side of this Arena Drive that are zoned commercial. The arena itself is zoned commercial. And then the other properties over here, one of which is being developed as an adult care facility, and the township has entertained, although none of those have come forward to the Planning Commission, similar activities on this other property over here. There is water available to the Bella Vita care facility that's being built, so, being constructed right now, so certainly that could be extended to the neighboring property. But again, this is an area that the Land Use Committee felt would probably be better served in a any residential category will work for those care facilities. And the future Land Use Committee thought, since this is commercial and these are likely to be either office or, and then probably office, at this half of it should probably be, what did I say there? Commercial. On that area to match essentially what the zoning is, and then these areas over here to the little further to the east in a suburban low density residential or medium suburban density residential here. The area 4 is somewhat sandwiched between the mobile home community and then the special planning area. The area that's there is fairly large lot, agricultural, residential in its nature. Water and sewer are, well, sewer is certainly available to the special planning area, but water is questionable. Right now, water is not available to it. This area presents some problems with how to deal with it, because if this special planning area is developed, that might create incentive or desire for apartments near, but it doesn't look like the commercial that would be part of that would be large enough to create a commercial core to attract apartments. And again, this is an area that the Land Use Committee thought should be looked at to be amended to be residential, again, matching what was immediately north of it. So those are the 4 areas. I just quickly walked through them, gave a little history of what we looked at, what was part of the factors in those decisions, relying somewhat on the residential market analysis that was done in 2014, looking at recent trends in development and multifamily developments. Those are the 4 areas that were targeted. So the first step would be for the Planning Commission to initiate. That's staff can initiate, the Land Use Committee can't initiate. Ultimately, we need the Planning Commission to initiate a future land use amendment, and then there's a whole noticing procedure that occurs as part of that.
Discussion, questions, agree?
If we're going to do some of these, is this the only changes?
Well, we were only given direction to look at just these multifamily areas. So the scope of the authority of that future land use committee was only to look at these multifamily areas. So,
but if we're going to go through the work, maybe
We
That's
could,
one of the reasons we asked for the marketing analysis, right?
for the retail market analysis,
Yeah,
Right.
retail market.
we could certainly initiate it, but put it on hold until that retail market
All
analysis
be
is
done at
done.
one time.
That's where I'm going. If we're going to change land use designations, which aren't zoning designations, but they still create anxiety in the community if you happen to live near or
Yeah.
in those locations.
They can.
So if you're going to do it, let's just get everybody aggravated at the same time. Make sure we do know. So that's kind of my thought.
Okay.
Can I ask who was on this future land committee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was curious. I thought it was one of you guys.
So the chair and I largely did this, worked on it through the summer and.
Okay.
And, yeah.
It was a big committee.
We didn't get a lot of interest from the rest of the plan.
We asked, and nobody volunteered, so he called and said, hey, you just want to do this?
We got color maps and everything we got out.
It's amazing you still use markers. I'm just saying, with the GIS work.
That's my style.
I'm just saying, yeah, it's like with the ability of ArcGIS and all the other things you can do today with the maps.
Yep.
I just love it. I tell you, I just really do like it.
I have a question on
Yeah.
area 3. The eastern boundary, is that around Bullard Road, or does it
not that
extend a little
far.
farther than that?
Well, let me probably pull up a better one to look at here. So this is
Bullard
the,
is at the lake.
Bullard is east of.
At the lake,
Yeah.
where the go backs up against that subdivision there.
Slide to the east a little bit. You got your neighborhood there?
Yep.
Or friend's neighbor and all that?
Yeah.
Over
Okay.
Mission Hill, right, Mike?
I didn't get into it, but you know, you can, I'll pick on this. If you look at the future land use map, I think this was the 2004 one. And in this same area, it's almost as if this drain or creek was dividing the designations. So on the north side of it, it was more of a single-family
more
category.
likely, yeah, where the water goes.
And then again, you can see in, this is 2011, again, that drain or creek, something happened over here.
Not a drain, don't say that. People live there. That's Ore Creek. He lives in Okemos.
But then in the 2015 one, it just, I guess they decided to go to the property lines. So
Yeah.
Well, I would be fine waiting for the GC stuff to be done. The committee did their work, so we can just,
I
Can
like
the
what you
committee
guys said. I
wait?
appreciate it, so.
yeah.
I think
I-
probably with the market analysis on the retail.
But I agree with the 4 points that you looked at, so.
Okay.
all right.
Check mark. All right, so we'll move on. No further discussion on any of that? All right, so let's just move on to 7C, which is the 2019 Planning Commission calendar. And Troy, I'm going to start by just saying I apologize for not reviewing it before tonight, but I was working on all these other things that we had. Typically, this shifts the November-December schedule as we historically have done. But if we wanted to, this is for the Planning Commission's discussion, if we went to November 7th and December 5th, we would keep the 2-week intervals coming out of October, November. There wouldn't be 2 weeks in a row. So we would end up being first and third versus second and third in those months if we did that. And I know we've done that in the past. I just don't recall what we have coming up here in the next November and December of 18.
I think in this year, we are on the second and third for November and the second and third for December. So what we did is just followed that. But if you are welcome to change it to anything. I don't think it would cause any concerns.
Well, no, I probably wouldn't. I'm just bringing it up. That it still would allow you to have 2 weeks from October 24th to November 7th, instead of 3, and then have no week, have 2 in a row, 2 Thursdays in a row, which is not likely that we would have that many meetings one after another.
No, but
Probably allows more.
it's really not about us as much as it is about the applicant.
Correct, and the process, the applications. So, whatever you'd like.
I think however it pans out is every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks?
What was,
That would be November 7th, 2019, would be the change, and December 5th, 2019. That'll keep it on the 2-week interval, which will allow time for applications to be processed.
Right, I think that's important.
So I think you're looking for a motion to accept this?
yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll support that.
Motion to approve the 2019 Planning Commission meeting calendar as amended here this evening.
Wait a minute, when is, before we do that?
Yes.
When is hunting season start?
I'm not a hunter, I don't know.
Is it November
The 15th,
15th?
the day after.
Day
We're-
after?
Yeah, but that,
Yeah.
everybody's gone by then.
Well, November 15th, well, we just moved off the 14th, so we're the 7th now.
Yeah, so we're a week
We're
before.
good then.
So we're good.
All right.
We took hunting into consideration when developing the calendar. So we've got a motion from Commissioner
Let's live in
Claney, second from
Michigan.
Commissioner Mitchell, to approve the 2019 meeting calendar as amended here this evening. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay, motion carries. Item 8, call to the public. We're almost done, another 45 minutes, I promise.
Uh-oh.
Absolutely.
So you said November 7th, so that's your next date?
That would be for 2019. We're setting the calendar for next year. What is our next meeting here? I can look.
I don't have a calendar in front of me.
If you go onto our website, the township portal, and there is a link that takes you to this site right here, and it identifies all the meetings that the township and past meetings, and you can also get copies of the minutes. So you could pretend you were here,
Uh-oh.
read through the minutes.
Uh-oh.
So every meeting, is that like a new date for next year?
Yeah, we have to set a calendar of meeting dates in the year because it's published, so the public knows when we're meeting. So what we did tonight was set our meeting dates for 2019, starting in January. Our calendar for the remainder of this year has already been set.
Right there.
So it's going to be November 1st and November 15th for this body, which is the Planning Commission.
Right, the Michigan Open Meetings Act requires that if a public body has regular meetings, they're to publish a schedule of those regular meetings at their first meeting in January. We usually do it ahead of time, so, because we don't always meet at that time. And that doesn't mean we can't have special meetings, you just need to properly notice special meetings.
Sometimes if we have no work, no applicants like tonight, we would cancel our meeting. So we get the calendar approved now in case for some reason we don't have another meeting, then the calendar is set. Does that answer it for you? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Sure.
So you guys talked about GC a lot. I don't really know what GC is. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. Troy, you want to explain GC?
Yeah, why don't you pop up that
Yeah.
page with the different districts?
So this is
General commercial.
a zoning map of the entire township, and the red is what's called general commercial.
A lot of retail.
Yep, lottery.
Did you let them know they were going to be tested on this before they could leave tonight?
It was going to be a surprise quiz.
That's also available online.
Mm-hmm. And did that answer it for you? Did that give you your answer?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Sure.
So all your guys' titles, is chairperson like the head for, are you like, because you speak a lot and
That's a good question, though.
It is.
It is a great question.
so are you considered, are you like the highest
No, I'm the staff that serves the Planning Commission. So they actually make a decision. I just make a recommendation, and they actually have the authority to make decisions on these cases. Unfortunately, I can't convene with them on these cases other than right here in front of everyone. So these guys don't get to talk and discuss on these cases until we're right here where everybody can see everything that was said. And so...
And he's selling himself short because he is a professional. In that sense, he's a planning professional. He has a degree in planning and zoning and works in planning. That's his career. He's also got a law degree too. But he's not giving you the full story because the township hires professionals to do kind of all the background work. We're just appointed people from the township. We have to live in the township, or there's some exceptions, right?
One.
So
Troy is a full-time employee. He's here every day, 40 hours a week.
Planning department.
For the planning department, correct. And then all of us work every 2 weeks whenever there's a meeting like this. So we're just like part-time employees.
We're commissioners. We have one chairperson.
Yep, and so great.
And all our votes are equal. Doesn't matter. All of us have the same vote.
And the zoning map requires that the township appoint people from different professions. So you try and have a good mix. So you have people with different backgrounds that can come in and share their experiences, part of the process.
But you do have to be a resident in the township, except for one exception. So one of us cannot be a resident. And then there's an assistant chair. That's correct, right? Yeah, the assistant who's not here tonight. Yeah. So Larry leads, and then Jeff would cover if Larry wasn't here. But Joe is a trustee, so he's a co.
I have a dual purpose. I'm elected to the township board, and I'm the board's liaison, but I'm also a voting member of the planning commission. So when I go to the township board meeting, they call on me and ask me what happened here. Sometimes when I'm not sleeping, no.
What are they thinking?
Yeah. Did you have another question?
Yeah, so does that mean you're part of the board trustees as well?
Yes. Yeah. I usually sit where Mike's sitting.
And Joe also has a degree in law.
Yes.
Can there be more than one trustee or planner helping out?
I don't think so. I think it's specified that...
Yeah, it just specifies there's one member of the planning commission.
Or one member of the board on the planning commission.
Yeah, one member of the board serves on the planning commission.
Right. And then the staff has employees that support, and he talks a lot, but he's done all the research on it. He and his staff write review letters for us. So we've read documentation. They gather facts from the applicant and all that. They put it together. They take that information, put it up against our guidelines, our zoning ordinance, and then tell us how it all works together. And then we take that information, talk about it like you saw, and then come to a decision. Some are easy, some are hard. Tonight's actually, I thought, was fairly hard. It was hard for me. So.
And there's certain things that we have discretion on, which gives us a little way in which there's things we don't have discretion on. We have to either yes or no.
Right.
It is what it is.
Right.
We're guided by the ordinance.
So, any other questions? What high school are you from? Okay. Very good. Cool.
Oh, you're
They
at
ask
Valley
better
School.
questions. Write that down.
Did you guys, anyone go to Highland Elementary?
Oh, me. Oh, me.
Did you know Mrs. Coliani?
Oh my, I thought I saw that when I saw your name.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, she spells it differently.
No, she spells it the same way. We just pronounce it differently.
When I saw that, I'm like, oh, that was my second grade teacher.
Yeah. She teaches fifth grade now.
All right. Well, we'll close call to the public, and we'll move to planner's report.
Yeah, I have a few things under planner report. First, I have had some discussion with Imagine Theater. I did want to share with you some of that stuff. if I can find it here.
That's technical language.
Never mind about the professional stuff.
So,
What did you just say? Got done telling them.
so this is Imagine Theater. It went through the process of approval from the Planning Commission and the board. They're under construction. They're hoping to open shortly. And part of that approval involved amending the PD, plan development standards pertaining to signs. And as part of the approval, the Planning Commission saw this diagram with various signs. They have amended those signs, and I believe they are consistent with the PD amendments. But I wanted to share them with you so that you are aware of those changes. I'm going to try to find them. Just bear with me. So this is the word EMAX. They have decided to modify its logo. It now has a circle around the E. I'm going to zoom in. So you can see it has a circle around it. What that did is it actually increased the size, because of how we calculate signs is you create a box, kind of like this red line. You create a box around its tallest points and its longest points, so it increased the size. What they are doing is they had these E's in this location here.
Yeah.
This E, and then an equal one on the other side of the entry. They're eliminating those. They also reduced the size of some of the signs so they all fit within the square footage. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, that when you see the building and the signs are up there, they may not match exactly what you recalled seeing, but they still will meet the requirements of the PD. So that's first on my list that I've stumbled through. Second one, I did attend a brown bag lunch. The topic was the Michigan Right to Farm Act. Brown bag lunch is the little forum put on in Livingston County. Various planners and planning commissioners attend, and there was an attorney, Catherine Kaufman, spoke on behalf of the Michigan Township Association there about Michigan Right to Farm Act and how some recent court cases have made decisions on that that could impact how zoning is applied. There's also some legislation out there. In case you don't know, the Michigan Right to Farm Act is a somewhat unusual act. It explicitly preempts the zoning ordinance, which means your zoning ordinance doesn't apply if the person is able to show they're acting in compliance with that Michigan Right to Farm Act. So there's apparently in the state of Michigan a high degree of latitude in working with farmers. And so some of the amendments that are being proposed would probably increase the Right to Farm Act authority in farming. So we don't see too much of that. You guys don't see hardly any of that stuff there. I do, as a staff person, see some of that stuff, but I don't see any concerns that we need to be concerned about at this point. The next one, the Ordinance Review Committee is meeting. We've decided to examine the architectural standards for the light industrial and industrial. We did spend some time talking about that, and this is our first item that we're addressing. And then also lastly, to let you know, I've been working on potential amendments to the fee schedule, doing surveys of other communities and examining the amount of time staff puts in on various applications. So you may see something down the road with respect to adjustments to the fee schedule for various land use projects. That's it.
Cool. Committee reports, anything?
I'm not on one.
You're not on? Well, I did read in the paper, I think Imagine was talking about a December 15th or whatever opening date.
Yeah.
Late December.
They're also going to be the first theater in Michigan with heated seats. So, with that, we're
I'll move to adjourn.
looking for a motion to adjourn.
Support?
We have Kalani and Murphy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thanks for coming, and good night.
Do you have documents to sign? Do you have to sign anything for your client? No? Okay, all right. Hartland requires a signature for the students.